Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. Today's show is about generational transfer and entrepreneurship. My guest, Steve Hasty, is a second-generation family business owner and a disruptive successor, with the next generation already stepping into the business. As president and owner of Hasty Awards, located outside of Kansas City, Steve has led the company for over 30 years, expanding its reach to provide meaningful awards for various sports, including swimming, gymnastics, wrestling, and track. His deep connection to the family business has driven Hasty Awards to become a significant player in the awards industry. Steve also co-owns Swimming World, where his leadership has played a vital role in shaping the company's vision and impact on the swimming community. Additionally, as the majority owner of Smarter Paw, an award-winning company specializing in pet products, Steve demonstrates his entrepreneurial spirit across diverse industries. Beyond his business ventures, Steve is committed to community development and has a passion for sports governance. Steve, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's quite a bio you have. So I always like to start with the backstory, like, when did the company begin? How did you get involved? What was your early experiences like? And what was the transfer of power story? So tell us that backstory there.
So I went to University of Kansas, and as I was finishing up, my brother had graduated from chiropractic school and had moved to Indianapolis, out of state. And so my parents, in 1986, started an awards company basically in their garage. And throughout my senior year in college, I did a lot of help with them and sort of got to know the business. And planning on going to law school, I started helping them out a little bit. And before you knew it, it became more of an opportunity for me to help them, and I like to joke about finishing raising my parents, which is sometimes the youngest child has to do that. And so I began, changed my life, got married, and changed my plans, and just stayed with the business. It was not until around about 5 years later, that my father was very good at not keeping control with an iron fist of the company. And through just a great relationship that he and I had together about different strategies and different directions that we could go in, he basically, said to me, "Hey, take it and do whatever you feel, and let me know how I can help." And that's essentially when the roles kind of changed. And as we grew, it became necessary to incorporate, and we were getting bigger than just a traditional mom and pop. And during the transition of incorporating, I purchased the company from them, and essentially became the 100% owner. My mom is still alive today. My mom still continues to get the same agreement that we had 20 years ago, 25 years ago, in which she's still a part. We call her the matriarch of the company still. But we've obviously come a long ways from our humble beginnings in our garage in Kansas.
Well, I think I understand now the joke of raising your parents. It wasn't that long into the business that you ended up basically kind of taking control.
Correct.
Was that an easy thing to come by? Was it an like sometimes you picture an arm wrestle match and one person wins and like, okay, that there's a clear winner here. But and sometimes there's a sticky baton and the older generation has trouble letting go and holds that baton and controls it. But yours sounds like it was an obvious, you should do this.
Yeah, I think it was, a lot of scary things were happening at the end of the 80s, right? Computers were becoming a part of our lives. And in order to grow any business, you had to have, some sort of computer involved, whether it was in programming engravers or if it was just simply running the financials. Those were foreign to my parents. And I think that because of the fact that I grew up at just the right time where computers were a part of my high school, I was obviously able to make that transition. And so, my dad was a coach. He knew how to win. He knew what the concept of team was, and we made a great team. And yeah, there was a couple of heated arguments at times, and digging our feet in, so to speak. My mom and I kind of still laugh to this day. Um, she was coming in to discipline me for something. I can't remember what it was. And I just said, hey, listen, if you think you can do this without me, good luck. And I think it kind of struck her that, hey, I didn't absolutely need this business for my life, that there was part of what I was doing was also, to be there for my parents. And, that's probably the last heated discussion we ever had, to be honest with you. We were able to transition to different things. My father was my I don't know, in the mob they call it the conciliere, I think, or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
He literally was able to help me through employee situations and vendor situations, customer situations. It wasn't so much that he had a bird's eye view and he was wise and and he didn't have a problem telling me when I was wrong. And I think that that's part of what made it a successful transition was we were whoever was at the head of the company didn't matter. We were really still all on the same team.
Did you have any legacy employees that he had hired and brought along for many years that weren't too computer literate, weren't going to get with your program, that you had some difficult situations with? You can remember. This would be a long time
Not
ago,
really.
but
We were just
okay.
the three of us at the very beginning. And
Okay. So
so, but my father also knew when friends of the family's children or whatever needed help, and he would say, "Hey, we need to, let's hire this guy and see if we can make it work." There were times it worked out well. There were times it didn't. And again, because we had this really calm ability to discuss things with each other, we were able to navigate through all of that.
that's great. So now it makes sense as a data point that there were three of you. And today there are 60 employees in your company?
We have 78 as
78.
of today. Yeah. We,
Fantastic. Okay. And there's a next generation. Oh, before I get into the next generation that's coming in, none of your siblings got involved with the business.
they did not. My brother was a very successful chiropractor.
Hmm.
He early on ventured out on his own, and he was originally with a group and then went out on his own. And he found a home right there outside of Indianapolis, raised two amazing girls, and sat on the sidelines and cheered us on. And there was never any uh, animosity between he and I. I think he knew that you know, what he was doing was what he wanted to do, and being a part of the family business was not something that he wanted. And so we never have had any of those issues, which was,
Okay.
again, can cause, you know, that can cause some family issues.
Well, and it almost sounds like you came in at a time and said to yourself, I could really help my parents out. This would be the responsible thing. And it was the youngest son being responsible to the parents. Because you could have gone on to law school or done what your older brother
Absolutely.
done. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So now you have the next generation of leaders within your family business. Your children are graduating high school all the way up to post college, right?
Correct.
And there are how many of them? There are
Three
four,
sons.
three sons, right?
Three sons.
And
Yeah.
three stepdaughters, I guess.
Yeah.
So, um, so what are some of the key challenges and considerations that are going through your head, as you experience them, coming into the business, being part of the business, and as you prepare them for future leadership roles?
Yeah. Retirement for men can be a little bit scary. And I think that, because I love what I do, bringing in your kids to the business and giving them a significant role can oftentimes mean that you are going to have to give up part of what you do or part of your identity.
Hmm.
And, um, you know, being, not yet at retirement age, it was always a little bit of a daunting, issue for me. One that I wanted to make sure that my kids were taken care of, but I also wanted to make sure that my life continued to be full, and again, I wanted to be relevant. Um, and so with one of my sons, he's an entrepreneur himself. He started his own company, and he's doing his own thing. But my middle son, who is a financial advisor, he's a senior wealth advisor now. He's 31. He was always sort of labeled as the person who could come in and potentially replace me. Part of that is because I do operate the finances, for the company, and he would be a natural fit. But my youngest, who started off doing his own thing, he actually made pipes, like smoking pipes, and did that right out of college, and made a nice living for 2 or 3 years. But he realized that in order to be able to achieve what he'd like to achieve, he really needed to work for a company. His other business was a one-man show. So he came in about 2 years ago, and he actually started off with our logistics department, and so he started handling a lot of and learning the business. I will say that I did allow my kids to work here in the summers, but where I put them was in accounts receivable, because that
Hmm.
was an area where they could learn the customers, they could learn the business, they would learn, how much volume we do, things like that. But when my kids graduated from college, they were not allowed to come work for me right out of college. My middle son, especially, was going through the interview process and was starting to not for sure if he was going to get the jobs that he wanted. And he'd asked me if I could, surely I would be able to come work for Hasty Awards. And, I very straightforward said, no, that college degree doesn't really mean anything to me. And you don't bring anything to the table. I need you to go out, work for somebody else, and let somebody else be the bad guy, and teach you and mentor you. And I think at that time you would be a great asset. You would come in and understand what my role is. It's tough being dad and boss, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. And so, there were hard feelings there for a month or two. Of course, he landed the job. But when Alex was looking to come into the company right out of college, my middle son stepped in and said, "Hey, listen, absolutely not. It's the best thing Dad ever did was to tell me no." and I'm going to make sure that he tells you no. You need to go do your own thing, even if it's your own small business, things like that. You need to learn a lot of things before you can come work at the family business. And my youngest son has then transitioned into HR, and he's doing, a little bit of absolutely everything here, and it's refreshing. It's nice. I played golf yesterday. I was supposed to play golf with my son who works here and one of the other ones. And I was laughing because he emailed me earlier in the week or last week and said, "Hey, you're going to need to find another fourth for Monday. I'm too busy at work." And I just looked at myself and said, "Wow, at 29 years old, he finally figured it out that, you got to work for a living." And that actually gave me a lot of relief that there might actually be a day where I don't have to be here every day.
That's great. That's great. So, well, it's interesting. It sounds like you thoughtfully came up with a policy or a practice of not allowing the kids to come directly into the business, go get some outside experience, which is generally where most family business owners or the parents land with regard to their kids coming into the business. Because, I mean, unless it's an enormous business and they can get experience in a lot of different departments already very well developed as a corporation, that makes a lot of sense. So over this 30 years or almost 40 that you've been running Hasty Awards,
Yeah.
you've had to make some instrumental changes that transform the business over time. And that's why I labeled you a disruptive successor, because you knew, well, one, that bringing computers in as a start was the future and that business had to be managed that way. What were some of the other instrumental changes that were significant in transforming Hasty Awards?
So when you're starting a business, my father had this idea that we were going to be a manufacturer, right? Everything that we sold,
Mm-hmm.
we would make in house. And um, I jumped in on all of that, and we were able to do that for about 3 or 4 years. And that's about the time when I started realizing that there was more opportunity for us if we were to get some of these products from third parties. And if we started with that model, we could then diversify into a number of other products. At the time, we were mostly just trophies and plaques. And
Mm-hmm.
when we started not having to spend all of our time producing them ourselves, it opened us up to other types of products such as ribbons and medals and things like that. Metals make up 60% of our business today. So,
Mm.
um, that was a transition that, we all had to be okay with. And while it did mean that we would become similar to other uh, competitors in our industry, we still found ways to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, and kind of have that value added piece to everything that we sold. And that was probably the first big hurdle that we faced.
Yeah.
The next hurdle was probably 2007, 2008, where we were simply outgrowing our facility. We had a lot of land that we had expanded on this land of ours, which was, there's nothing more satisfying than not only owning your own business, but you work essentially, on the homestead that you grew up on. Well, we really needed to expand, and we needed to put ourselves in a position where not just expanding for the next 5 years, but the ability to grow, 3 or 4 times what we were at that time. And it required a move to town. It required a $2 million facility. It required really some significant changes in how we did business. And again, we navigated that methodically. We didn't do it overnight. We didn't have knee-jerk reactions to it, but we moved to town. We moved to Industrial Park. We went from 40 employees to basically 80 employees within 2 or 3 years. And throughout COVID, we got more efficient. In our situation, COVID was in hindsight, COVID was a positive. We navigated through it, and now we work very efficiently. We have fewer employees, but they're much higher paid, and they're much more satisfied and happy. And today we just run very efficiently.
You must have taken a dip in income
We
during
did.
the COVID period because sports world was probably largely shut down, right?
Yeah.
And
The headlines across the bottom of the TV that California was going to a maximum of 10 people, was a death sentence for us in terms of swim meets, wrestling meets. Everything that we did everything we sold the product to was a gathering of hundreds of people usually. So we lost about 75% of our business pretty
amazing,
much overnight.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah. And so again, you have to, that was a challenge. And but we had incredible employees, right? You can't say enough about that. We went down to 25 employees, and everybody wore a different hat. And if you were a salesperson, you were often assembling. If you were a warehouse person, you were then being trained to engrave. And we actually took that whole period of time and we invested in our equipment. We knew, or we were confident that the world would get back to normal. We were confident that people would still want their children to be in athletics. And I took PPP money and I invested a lot of that money into equipment, modernizing, and getting ready for the push that we felt would ultimately come. And it did, but it was fall of 21 before we started feeling a little bit normal again.
That took a big risk, and that's probably how the money was supposed to be utilized, or at least keep things afloat.
Correct.
So innovation, modernization, that was kind of, I guess, the mantra during that time, and you navigated successfully through it. So you then got involved with Swimming World. When did that happen? And tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
the
So,
foray into that. And by the way, I'm guessing from what you've said that your father also gave you this whole love and passion of sports. You described him as a coach, and so that DNA was passed down from him to you.
yeah,
So
he was our swim coach. So we swam.
okay.
We were swimmers, and
Hmm.
he thought we'd be in the Olympics one day, but
Mm,
we don't quite fit the mold for the average Olympic swimmer, which you come to realize that. But yeah, the in growing our business, we knew that my father's network of other coaches in swimming would be helpful,
hmm.
and we used that to sort of dominate a sport that really got no attention from any other awards companies. And so
Right.
the main vehicle for that was Swimming World Magazine, and that was a way for us to reach all over the United States. And we did that. So we developed a good relationship as an advertiser. I got to know the publisher very well, became, one of my best friends. And when Swimming World went for sale years ago, I threw my name in the hat. Um, but I quickly realized that the gentleman that owned Swimming World was also passionate about swimming, and essentially the magazine at that time wasn't very profitable. And I had a conversation with him and suggested that he donate it to my friend who had been his publisher for 20 years. That friend then acquired the magazine and then donated it to the Swimming Hall of Fame, of which I was a board member on. And the Hall of Fame then owned Swimming World Magazine, and for about 5 years until COVID hit, and the magazine just needed. It was the Swimming Hall of Fame is a nonprofit, so a nonprofit's not going to have the money to invest in modernizing a print magazine that needed to desperately get into the digital world. And the only way for it to accomplish that was to get sold. And that is when I was able to, put together a bid. As a board member, you have to be very careful. We didn't steal the magazine. We probably gave 3 or 4 times what what it was really worth at the time. And that transaction, couldn't have gone any smoother. And so I partnered up with Jack Hallahan, who is my partner in that, and he brings all the magazine experience to the table. I run it I'm the backdoor guy. I deal with all the finances, and I connect the dots. I certainly know a lot of people in swimming. He knows just as many. And so between us, this has become, for me, it's a hobby. For Jack, it's a career. But I can say that it is one of the most, I'm having the most fun that I've ever had with a business in terms of owning Swimming World Magazine.
And so at this point, it's a digital and a physical magazine.
It is, yes,
and
it is.
and,
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
about.
trying to grow it across the youth demographic.
We are. So we are with USA Swimming. We're the official publishing partner of them. We just produced a 100-page magazine that's going to be going out here in a couple of weeks to 250,000 households. And it's a dual issue. It's got Splash Magazine, which is USA Swimming's, on one side, and it's got Swimming World, the Olympic preview issue, on the other side. And it's very unique, and it's really an amazing piece. I've seen not only the cover, but I've seen many of the articles that are in there, and it's just it's going to be a great piece. Can't wait for it to hit the streets.
All right, fantastic. So your involvement spans across various sports industries, right? From Olympic sports awards to swimming governance. How do you see entrepreneurship evolving in the sports sector, and what opportunities do you believe there are for the most promising opportunities for future entrepreneurs?
Used to be physical assets, I thought, were where you saw a lot of sports opportunities. People were putting up metal buildings and doing basketball and volleyball courts and things like that, and really becoming event hosts. And while that has sort of cooled down a little bit, that is still, I don't know if there's as much opportunity just because of market saturation in most of the areas of the country. But what I see now is biggest opportunity is connecting kids with trainers and diets and workout routines, and doing everything basically from their phones. Again, we're in a digital age where you can get grandma and grandpa can watch their grandson swim in California and reside in Pennsylvania, and it's all done on a phone app, right? And I think that those are right now the biggest opportunities that exist for entrepreneurs, is connecting those people with vendors that can bring not just goggles and suits, and at least in the sport of swimming, but bring health and wellness and training and coaching, frankly, across all avenues. But technology is still driving a lot of that entrepreneurship.
Is that part of the vision for the future of swimming world? Do you plan to adapt and innovate and engage the swimming community in this direction?
We do.
Mm,
That is where Jack and I are very well aligned. Is that the future is in digital and transforming a brand, which is the Bible really of the sport. It's been around since 1968, and there's not a Olympian that has never, that will look back at their picture on the cover of the magazine. It's just been that big a part of the sport. But transforming that into a digital format, you can imagine how hard that can be, and it requires it requires some funding. It requires some very talented people surrounding us, and it's execution of some of ideas in order to get to that point. And and again, that's what makes this so much fun, is that we're able to do that. And we're fortunate enough to be well financed, and really the sky's the limit.
that's great. Yeah, well, we certainly watched it over the last decade with the major newspapers in the major cities. I know LA Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, et cetera. So Washington Post, whatever, the list goes on. How they made the transformation. Some struggled and are still challenged with it. So,
Right.
well, so let's go to with a broader question. With your experience in entrepreneurship, um, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to disrupt traditional industries and carve out their own path to success? I mean, what would you say to one of your sons or someone else's son in or daughter in a family business that is in an unsexy industry and needs to look at, opportunity and see, because right, if we're not growing, we're dying, and it's just a matter of time. So, with your experience, what advice would you give?
I think that one of the things that entrepreneurs have to always remember is that at the end of the day, we're still a people to people. The way that we interact with people is what makes a company successful. It's not always about how the app works and things like that. But being a differentiator, if you're coming into a business that was started by your parents or by your grandparents, um, your role is to shift gears. Your role is to shift it to the next gear. And whatever is modern at that time that you take it over, those are the things that you need to bring to the table, because the older generation's not equipped to bring those things to the table. In my experience, social media is still a mystery to me. I'm not a social media guy. I'm not an Instagram guy, but I know that that's a critical piece of the growth of any company now. Um, in some of the like TikTok and things like that. I am not able to bring much to the table, but I expect my son to be able to bring, that avenue of marketing and that avenue of growth to the table. And so for the younger generations that are possibly going to come in and perhaps save the business, they may be coming in to grow the business. But I think that whatever is modern in their lives at the time, at this day and age, that is what they need to bring to the table.
Yeah. So now you've managed to balance your role as a business owner, as a community leader, as a sports enthusiast, and I'm guessing that you still are participating in swimming or some other type of sports activity to keep fit because you look really healthy.
Well,
Uh,
I wish I was a little more healthy, but
don't
uh,
we all?
yeah, I
Right?
mean, I try to swim as often as I can. My partner is still a master swimmer
Mm,
and open water swimmer. I mean, so you know, when it comes to being able to balance all of that, employees are the critical piece, right?
Right. Yeah.
You have to take care of good people, and it's not always about dollars and cents. You do have to pay them well, but you got to create an environment that they can be successful in. And we all love what we do, but at the end of the day, family is first and work is second. And I've never worked on weekends. We've never been open on weekends. If one of my employees has a child that they want to coach in baseball and they got to leave at 3 o'clock every day to do that, we're going to find a way to make that work, because at the end of the day, that's what creates the loyalty, and that's what creates um, just a happy employee is usually a dedicated and committed employee. And if you can do one thing, you need, if you want to have a life where you can be independent and not have to be there every day, then the company's going to have to be ran by good employees.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn how to take care of them.
Are you thinking at this point in time or this age about transferring of ownership either to your children or to the employees? What are your thoughts on maybe some best practices for owners in general in a situation like yours? Uh, you know.
Yeah, I love what I do. And so, I don't want to be completely out. I don't know that I want to just get up every day and wonder what I'm going to do that day. You know, so for
Swim.
me, yeah, right. I would do a lot more of that. That is for sure. But,
Right.
I think that we are looking at some really interesting things. There's a thing called an IDGT, which is an intentionally dysfunctional trust account, grantor trust.
Hmm.
And that's if you read through that, it is an interesting way to transfer wealth and transfer ownership while you're alive, but it solves a lot of things. It gets the company out of your trust and into your children's trust. So that it helps with the inheritance part, but it also serves as a good transition, especially if you have multiple children. If you have one child, it's much less complicated, but with multiple children, you have to keep everything fair. People keep track. My kids know, and there's much. You have to balance so that each child is getting um, the inherited value the same. The one right now that is working is compensated, but he earns what he is paid. Whereas when we start talking about transferring the ownership, um, even if one son runs the company, he'll get compensated based on being the CEO. The others should be able to get an equal part of the inherited value of the company. So we have open conversations about this. This is not the gorilla in the room, so to speak. It's real. It's on their minds, and I want them to know that nobody's going to get left out. And again, you hope there's something at the end, right? I mean, at this point, I don't think I could screw this up, but um, you don't know what happens in the world. I mean, global pandemic, nobody thought that would happen. But so we're doing things and looking at some of these innovative ways to pass wealth on and to pass the ownership on to the next generation.
Yeah, that's great. And so having those conversations at this stage makes sense because at some future stage, you might set up some governance where the children all sit on the board and make decisions that impact the family, the company, even. So that's great.
Right?
All
Yeah.
right. So you weren't busy enough and you decided to get into another business, which is Smarter Paw, which is a pet products company. Is there any tie-in here with the other businesses or community ventures that you have?
No, there's not. This just was an opportunity that that came along, and that company was started by a gentleman by the name of Chris Glissman, and he had a great idea. It's a catnip company, and it also it's for both dogs and cats. And he was in a situation where he was facing bankruptcy, and he had reached out to my accountant, and um, I met with him and went through the idea. And at the same time, our now CEO was finishing up at a company that he had taken public, and and the timing was just perfect. So the four of us own a company called Smarter Paw, and we have some really great brands that are in Petco and PetSmart. And what I've loved about being involved with Smarter Paw is, number one, it's a very fun brand, but I'm not the CEO. And I think that's the best piece of it is we have an incredible CEO in Scott Reagan, and he understands the pet industry. And from running a family business, I don't run it like a corporation. There's not reports. There's not, we don't have to do, year over year comparisons and produce them all in these fancy, documents. I mean, everything is pretty much ran, by myself, and yes, with my banker, and yes, with my accountant, but nothing as formal as a corporation is. And what Scott has taught me is to apply a lot of the things that you study in business school that when you get to a small business, you don't always use. And now I'm seeing a lot of how all of the corporate language and how that relates to a different kind of business, similar size. It's not quite as big as Hasty Awards, but it certainly is getting there. And it's a business that we will eventually try to sell. And it's just, but for me personally, not being the CEO is awesome. And I know just enough. Scott and I have a great relationship, and there are times he's talking above my head, but at the end of the day, I do bring the experience from Hasty Awards to the table for employees, for vertical integration in terms of how we handle our vendors and things like that. That makes us successful. But the biggest part is just not being the boss. It's great.
Yeah, I bet. Steve, it's been great having you on the show today. We've covered a lot of ground from, like I said, generational transfer and entrepreneurship to how you relate to your family and prioritize your values. So really want to thank you for taking the time to share your story with us. Steve Hasty, president and owner of Hasty Awards, co-owns Swimming World, and a majority investor in Smarter Paw. And we haven't even talked about some of his community service involvement, which I know is that could be a whole show in and of itself.
Right.
Steve, thanks for spending time with us today.
I appreciate it, John. It's been a pleasure.
All right, folks, you know the drill. If you like this show, please tell others about it, share it, give us a good rating on your listening podcast application of choice, and stay tuned for future episodes of the show. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.